in the era of the e-bikes, here's a foldable fat tire contender which could be the awesome all-terrain commuter you've been looking for. But is it? Let's inspect. Hi, welcome. Good to meet you, Michael, my name. What we do on the channel is to inspect a lot of fresh and cool tech. That's a brand new e-bike coming from ENGWE, actually based on a slightly older model, because this one is called the EP-2 Pro upgraded version, whereas most of the changes are related to the battery upgrades. So our task today would be to review everything really relevant to this bike, and know that I'm going to make a lot of references to the time when I'm making this video, which is the second half of 2022. Therefore, if you watch the episodes, let's say in 2-3 years from now, could be that some things might have changed. But we're going to go through our usual thorough inspection, figuring out the good, the bad sides, and trying to help you to find out whether that's the right fit for you. This happens to be one of the really affordable electric bikes that you can buy at the moment. Keeping a price below $1,000 is these days rare, especially for e-bikes with such a decent motor and foldable design. Note that alternatives in this segment are more than just a few, and you can see some of the reviews for similar e-bikes that we've published on the channel. Just head over to the video description area, and I'll make sure to also put a link to the best deal for the ENGWE EP-2 Pro. The unboxing experience hasn't been as smooth as I hoped for. On one side, the assembly is not much different to most similar electric bikes, but, well, I didn't pay attention to the direction of the box, so had to lift it up eventually. Still, ENGWE made sure that the bicycle is well protected during transportation, and there wasn't a single scratch that I managed to find there. You will receive a user guide as part of the assembly, a charger, some tools for the setup, and of course all the needed components. You're going to spend a lot of time removing all these protective films and foam. Do not rush it, and be careful when cutting loose the cable ties. Thinking it through, I would first go for mounting the handlebar. Note that you will have to well tighten all the screws in order to guarantee everything is solid. If any of the parts on the front is loose, this can be really dangerous while riding. Mounting the front wheel comes next. Just make sure the disc is fitting between the claws, and then align and tighten properly. The front wheel doesn't have a toolless quick-release mount option, but that should be alright. Interestingly, ENGWE haven't included a wrench number 16, which is the exact one you're gonna need in order to tighten the nuts, and you won't hear from me any good words about the quality of the tools included. There also is a front wheel fender, which is to be mounted together with the front light. The rear fender is already pre-installed, but then there's also a rack that you have to mount, which has been a lot more challenging than expected. Some of the screws that are factory pre-installed have been over-tightened, and if that's the case with your bike, better get some high-quality hexagons in order to avoid further complications. Mount the seat post, and I guess the bike is riding ready. The motor is already installed, it's inside the rear wheel. Electronics is also in place, hidden inside the frame where possible, and so is the battery. It is removable and replaceable, by the way. Before I tell you more about the riding experience, let's quickly go over the most interesting specs. Quite a powerful motor. It is 750 watts, 20 inch by 4 inches fat tires, alloy foldable frame, 13 Ah removable battery covering range of up to 100 kilometers, mechanical disc brakes, cruise control, LCD display, Shimano Tourney 7-speed system, and all of that happens to be kind of heavy. Well, that's a pretty interesting mixture of the specifications, and obviously the highlight is on the huge battery capacity, which would give you quite a decent range, and we're going to talk about this in just a moment. Now, first thing to warn you, before ordering the bike, make sure to double check with your local regulations whether that bike is going to be allowed in bike lanes, because especially here in Europe, in many countries, we don't have obviously a speed limiter, so going beyond 25 kilometers per hour and having a 750 watt motor is not legal to be on the bike lanes. But in some places you can register this as a regular motorbike. In some other places doesn't really matter about the motor power and the maximum speeds. Now the components. I mentioned the motor, which is obviously installed in the rear wheel. 750 watts sounds like really a lot, and compared to many similar sized models, I would say this is the most responsive, the most powerful one. Better acceleration than the EPI-2 M1 Pro, which is a very comparable product, a bit more expensive though. But 80 Nm maximum torque. And as compared to the Bosch CX Performance line, which offers 85 Nm with just 250 watts, I would say this here is not the most effective motor you can order. The rest of the components are also rather entry-level. Very basic suspension on the front, the Shimano Tourney, which is their cheapest product, and also the brakes, which probably are not as reliable as I wish, but I guess it would make better sense if we go for a ride and talk about all of these components. ENGWE want us to believe that the EP-2 Pro is off-road oriented. Well, it looks like one, but not for heavy off-road riding and totally not for going down hills. If battery is empty, you're going to notice how absurdly big the crankset on the front side is. While it is swappable, this ain't be one of these easy procedures. Let me answer to the most commonly asked questions about e-bikes. We start with the range. ENGWE say that you can get 50 km range in pure electric mode, which means no pedaling involved. Might be possible if tires are at high pressure and you ride using the cruise control no faster than 20 km per hour. Truth is that this is unlikely to happen, so realistically it's gonna be no more than 30, maybe 35 km, which is still fantastic. With some more pedaling from your end, you can go near the 100 km expected range. At any point of time, you can entirely shut the motor off, and this is gonna work as a conventional non-electric bike. Which is the main reason I'm lately rooting for e-bikes as opposed to e-scooters, especially if you don't need to hop into subway or buses with them, because even when the battery is exhausted, you can still use the bike and enjoy it. If I may comment on the rest, well, there's front suspension, which can be locked, performance is as expected poor, avoid jumping, and this terrain with too many rocks because I have my concerns about its longevity. The tires are fine, just keep them at a pressure below 2 bars, and trust me, on this bike they are the best ever shock absorber. Pretty interesting rims. The brakes are, well, let's say I would really love to upgrade them on my e-bike. Thing is that they have power cutout sensors, so you should either get something with similar sensors, which could be motors from brands like Zoom, for instance, or you can buy conventional bike brakes and install sensors by yourself. There are such available on AliExpress and Amazon, and I'll make sure to link a few models in the video description area. Given the weight of the bike, I would say the sanitary minimum for guaranteeing safety would be something like the hydraulic Shimano MT200. If there's something really cool, that's the seat post length. It's crazy long, really tall people won't have any problem, and also the handlebar has adjustable size. The frame looks pretty cool. Being foldable makes it possible to fit it inside the boot of some cars. I remind you that the bike is rather heavy, so lifting it up takes some effort. To make everything lighter, you may remove the battery. Oh yeah, you can buy spare batteries as well, and you can charge it while inside the frame or outside it. And there's a key so that no one can detach the battery instead of you. In that sense, this is some sort of anti-theft protection. I did mention about the positive impressions from the motor, 3 different riding modes and 5 speeds that you can choose between. The fastest option is really cool, up to 45 km per hour. In my case, close to a 90 kilo weighing rider, I couldn't go beyond 38. Cruise control is also in place, so that the bike feels fantastic for covering longer distances, like traveling between 2 towns. The display is basic, but I'm a big fan of these monochromic displays because they're really well visible no matter what. Day or night, you're going to be able to see the available data. Most of the time, you probably would be interested in the battery level and the speed modes, but there are some advanced tweaks that you may want to adjust as well. I've been quite happy with the defaults though. The drawbacks. I'd easily note down the brakes and the Shimano Tourney here. The bike is a bit too heavy, no smartphone app support, narrow handlebar, and above all of that, I would just know that you don't get the necessary confidence that the bike can sustain some serious shocks. So yeah, let's go ahead and do the summary. And obviously I've been a little bit more critical than usual. It's mostly because when I hear EP-2 Pro upgraded version, I do expect certain upgrades to be in place. And true, the battery life is now remarkable, thanks to the boosted size of the battery. But all the remaining components, which are rather entry level and make me have second thoughts whether I should recommend the bike or not, because the motor, not so optimal, the brakes make me a little nervous when I have to make sudden stops, and the Shimano Tourney, I don't even have to comment about that. But still, we have to admit that in the sub $1,000 segment, ENGWE are probably the best value pack that you can order, especially this model, the EP-2 Pro, the upgraded version. So that's been everything about today's video, and as usual, more information about the product and ways to support the channel are listed in the video description area right below. Thank you so much for trusting in me, and hope to see you soon. Cheers!